Chapter 5. The shadow didn't have a face, but it had a hunger. Elias scrabbled backward across the muddy driveway, his boots kicking uselessly at the sludge. His legs felt heavy, like they were wrapped in wet blankets. He looked down and choked on a scream. The denim of his jeans was gone. In its place was coarse, brown burlap, stitched right into his skin. His knees weren't bending right. They felt stiff, wooden. "No!" Elias gasped. "Get off me!" He swung the cordless drill at the looming void, but the shadow didn't have a body to hit. It was just a cold stain in the air, swirling like ink in water. It lunged forward, not to strike him, but to enter him. It washed over his face, tasting like copper pennies in old graves. Elias gagged, rolling onto his stomach. He dug his fingers into the mud and dragged himself toward the house. He couldn't feel his toes anymore. The numbness was creeping up his shins, turning muscle into straw and bone into pine. "The house," his mind screamed. "Fire! Purify it with fire!" He didn't care about the equity anymore. He didn't care about the flip, the loan sharks, or the debt. He just wanted to be warm. He wanted to burn this cold, rotting feeling out of his veins. He clawed his way up the porch steps. His right leg was completely rigid now, dragging behind him like a dead log. Thump, drag, thump, drag. He collapsed into the hallway, the smell of the destroyed chair and wet mud assaulting his nose. The house was pitch black, sealed tight by the mud on the windows, but he could hear the walls breathing. The house knew he was hurt. The house was waiting for him to stop moving so it could finish the job. "Not yet," Elias wheezed. He pulled himself into the kitchen. The linoleum was slick. He reached up and grabbed the edge of the table, hauling himself upright. He teetered there, balancing on his good leg, the burlap one tapping hollowly against the floor. His eyes landed on the camping stove. Beside it was the red canister of fuel. "Liquid gold," Elias muttered, a dark, hysterical laugh bubbling up. He grabbed the canister. It was heavy, full. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees in a second. Elias spun around, leaning against the counter for support. The shadow was in the doorway. It squeezed through the frame, filling the room with absolute darkness. It didn't walk, it flowed, blotting out the meager light from the hallway. "This coat fits." The voice vibrated in Elias's teeth. It wasn't sound, it was the friction of dry stalks rubbing together in his skull. "I'm not a coat," Elias shouted. He uncapped the fuel canister. "I'm a man. I'm Elias Thorne. Names are for the living." The shadow surged forward. Elias didn't hesitate. He splashed the fuel in a wide arc. It coated the floor, the table, the grandfather's journal, and the hem of the shadow itself. The liquid passed through the darkness and hit the floor, but the fumes filled the air. Elias grabbed the lighter from his pocket. His thumb was turning gray, the skin looking like papery onion skin, but he still had a spark. "You want the house?" Elias snarled, his eyes wide and wild. "Take it! Take it all!" He flicked the lighter. Whoosh! The world turned orange. The fire caught the vapor instantly. A wall of heat slammed into Elias, singeing his eyebrows and blistering his face. The flames roared up the curtains, devouring the dry, old wood of the cabinetry. The shadow recoiled. It didn't burn. Fire couldn't hurt a void, but it hated the light. It shrieked, a sound like a train forcing its brakes, and swirled backward into the hall. "Yeah, back off," Elias screamed. He laughed,
watching his legacy, his inheritance, his only asset turn into ash. The loan sharks couldn't break his legs if he was dead. The bank couldn't foreclose on a pile of charcoal. But the fire was spreading fast, too fast. The heat was unbearable. The mud plastered over the windows began to hiss and steam, baking into hard clay. The house was becoming an oven. Elias tried to move toward the back door, but his left leg seized. He looked down. The burlap had reached his thigh. His left hand, still clutching the lighter, was stiffening. The fingers were fusing together, the skin turning into a mitten of rough cloth. He dropped the lighter. It clattered, not a metallic sound, but a dull, wooden tock. "No," Elias whimpered. "The fire, it should stop it." The flames roared around him, but they didn't touch him. The burlap skin wasn't burning. The straw filling his limbs wasn't catching a spark. He was part of the field now, and the field was eternal. The shadow returned. It moved through the heart of the fire, unaffected. It loomed over Elias, massive and terrible. Fire cleans the soil, but the root remains. Elias fell backward, hitting the floor. He couldn't feel the impact. He couldn't feel the heat anymore. The shadow descended. It didn't attack him. It poured itself into the open neck of Elias's shirt. Cold.
Absolute, freezing cold filled his chest. It rushed into his lungs, pushing out the air. It flowed into his heart, stopping the beat. It filled his skull, pushing out his thoughts, his memories, his fear. Elias tried to scream, but his jaw was fused shut. He could feel stitches pulling tight across his lips. "Open your eyes," a voice said. Not the friction voice, a new voice, his own voice, but ancient. Elias realized his eyes were open. He was staring at the burning ceiling, but he couldn't see the fire. Everything was gray. He saw the structural beams of the house, not as wood, but as lines of tension. He saw the heat as waves of white, and through the walls, through the mud, through the fire, he saw the outside. He saw the south field. It was glowing, a pulsating, rhythmic thrum of energy rising from the dirt. The corn, wait, there was no corn. It was just dirt. But he could feel the potential of the corn. He could feel the seeds waiting to be born. He could feel the hunger of the earth. He was the earth. "The pact is sealed," the voice in his head said. "The debt is rolled over." Elias tried to move his arm. He couldn't. He was rigid. He was a statue. The fire raged around him, consuming the kitchen table, the walls, the ceiling. The roof groaned and collapsed, raining burning debris down on top of him. A heavy beam smashed into his chest. He didn't feel pain. He felt a dull pressure. The beam bounced off his chest. He wasn't flesh and blood. He was petrified wood and bound earth. The floor gave way. Elias fell. He tumbled down into the darkness of the cellar, landing in the dirt. The house burned above him, a glorious funeral pyre. The heat baked the mud, turning the cellar into a kiln. Elias lay there in the dark. He couldn't blink. He didn't have eyelids anymore. He didn't have eyes. But he could see. He could see the roots of the old oak tree stretching through the soil. He could see the worms tunneling in the dark. He could feel the heartbeat of the land, slow and deep, roughly one beat every season. He wasn't Elias Thorne anymore. Elias Thorne was a man who owed money and ran from his problems. He was the Watcher, and he had a lot of time to pay off his debt. 6 months later. "It's definitely a unique property," the real estate agent said, her heels clicking on the new gravel driveway. She was young, ambitious, and smelled of vanilla perfume and optimism. She held her clipboard like a shield.
Behind her, a young couple looked around nervously. The husband adjusted his glasses. The listing said the farmhouse burned down? A tragedy, the agent nodded, making a sad face that didn't reach her eyes. Electrical fire, old wiring. The previous owner, well, he didn't make it out. But look at this view. She swept her arm toward the valley. It was spring. The valley was lush, exploding with green. The weeds were gone, replaced by a carpet of wildflowers. The air was sweet and clean. And the soil, the agent gushed, kicking at the dirt with her designer shoe. They say this is the most fertile land in the county. You could grow anything here. Organic vegetables, a vineyard. It's a gold mine. The wife looked toward the back of the property. What about that? She pointed to the south field. It was plowed perfectly. 30 rows of dark, rich earth, straight as an arrow. And at the very edge, right up against the tree line, stood a scarecrow. It looked new. The pole was dark, polished wood. The clothes were a simple set of work overalls and a flannel shirt, a bit dusty but intact. The head was a clean burlap sack tied tight with a new rope. Oh, that, the agent laughed. Just a bit of local charm. Keeps the crows away. The previous owner's grandfather was very traditional. The husband squinted. It's kind of creepy. It doesn't have a face. Minimalist, the agent chirped. Come on, let me show you the site plans for the new build. You can put the master bedroom right facing the woods. Imagine waking up to this nature every day. She led them away, walking back toward her car. The husband paused. He looked back at the field. Honey, his wife called. Coming, he said. He rubbed the back of his neck. Weird. I could have sworn it was facing the woods a second ago. It's the wind, babe. Come on. They got into the car. The doors slammed. The engine started. In the south field, the air didn't move. The air was perfectly still. The scarecrow stood rigid at the edge of the 30th row. It had no eyes painted on the burlap. The fabric was blank. But deep inside the straw, deep inside the petrified wood and the binding spells of the soil, Elias watched them drive away. He saw the heat of their engine. He saw the beat of their hearts. He felt the soil beneath his post vibrate. It was hungry. He held his ground. He wouldn't move, not while they were looking.
But tonight, the moon would be dark, and he had heard the husband mention they might camp out to get a feel for the land. Elias waited. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. He just counted the rows. 30 for now.